What's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about how Metroid Dread proves exactly what Mega Man needs to do in the future, because Capcom revealed their recent sales numbers and it showed off that Mega Man 11 is actually the best selling Mega Man game of all time, which is kind of surprising to a lot of people, considering most people don't feel that Mega Man 11 is like the best Mega Man game or had the most success or was the most highly noted or whatever it is. It came to a shock to a lot of people out there, because look at the Super Nintendo Mega Man games like Mega Man X1, Mega Man X2, Mega Man X3. Some of these games are legendary, along with the NES games as well. And to find out that Mega Man 11 is the best selling one, man, that's definitely interesting to say the least. But before we get into more of this discussion here and what Metroid Dread has to do with it, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos first. Now let's go ahead and jump into this and why Metroid Dread proves it. Because what we know about Metroid Dread is that that game has sold 3 million units plus. Back, I think around March or so, we got the sales numbers that it's at 2.9 million units, and it's continued to sell from there. Plus, we also got the recent sale that was on the game that boosted it all the way up to, I think, number 10 on the eShop charts. I actually covered it a while back on my channel. So Metroid Dread has continued to sell and more people are picking up the game. So the fact that Metroid Dread, a game that also doesn't get the biggest sales, is one of those old school 2D action games that started back on the NES era, just like Mega Man, can sell 3 million units plus in about a year's time. And Mega Man 11, that's on multiple consoles. I mean, we're talking Switch, Xbox, PlayStation, PC, it's everywhere, and it did half that. I mean, obviously something has to give here. And yes, Metroid has always been more popular than Mega Man. That's one thing that's true. Even from the original NES Metroid game, that was more popular and sold more than the NES Mega Man game, so that is true. Also, Super Metroid sold more than the Mega Man X games, so that's something that we've seen throughout the course of history, that Metroid has sold better than Mega Man. But I think that nobody really expected Metroid Dread to take this type of jump this fast until we got a system like the Nintendo Switch. That's where I knew that, hey, the Switch itself, if you make a super high quality Metroid game, not a remake, not a remaster, not something that we've already gotten, not some type of offshoot spin-off budget Metroid Prime like Metroid Prime Federation Force, but an actual new 2D Metroid game, you're gonna have great sales. And if you make a big new Metroid Prime game on the Nintendo Switch, you're gonna get even bigger sales from that, and that's exactly what Nintendo's doing. I think that Capcom could spin the same thing for Mega Man. The problem is actually getting it pitched to the higher ups at Capcom and getting the funding and budget for it. But having a high quality 2D Mega Man game in the same light as Metroid Dread, get a good team that knows the type of games that they want to build, like the 2D games that they want to build, and those franchises that can do fantastic tech, and work on that with a brand new Mega Man game. And I think that you can see sales that are like Metroid Dread or above for Mega Man. But I think here's one thing that might be a little bit controversial, because Mega Man has been a multi-platform game for quite some time now. I think that you'd have to kind of isolate and focus it on what you want to do. Metroid Dread, obviously it would have sold great if it was multi-platform and all that, but I do think that it's a first-party franchise, so that's not going to happen. But I think that if you say, hey, we're going to target one platform, we're going to put all of our investments and resources and team that knows how to develop on the Nintendo Switch, like a Mercury Steam, for example, and we're going to make a good quality Mega Man game and put the budget and team for that and sell it just on the Nintendo Switch, because retro games and classic games being brought back have had a resurgence on Switch. It's been fantastic to see so many classic games being brought back. Older franchises, decades old or a decade plus old, have a lot of success on the Nintendo Switch. We've seen it time and time again. If you bring that with Mega Man and focus it on the Nintendo Switch, I think that you're going to have so much more success than diluting it and spreading the resources out across 15 different platforms like Mega Man 11 and going low budget with that type of game. Then if you have success on the Nintendo Switch, you can then port it over to other games. I think that there's been other titles that have had that type of success as well, then we've seen it expand. So for example, Octopath Traveler, that is an old school classic style of game, new, modern, but old school when it comes down to it, and they focused everything on the Nintendo Switch. It did incredibly well, sold millions of copies, then they branched out to PC, then they branched out to Xbox, and now the sequel is coming to PC, PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, and also the Nintendo Switch. So I think that you can build the Mega Man franchise from there and then kind of branch it out. But 1.6 million units in this amount of time with this amount of platforms isn't really going to inspire Capcom to really kind of invest into it. So they have to have a solid plan. They have to know what they want to do. And I think they need to target an individual platform for this type. I'm not trying to sit here and say that Mega Man doesn't deserve to be on other platforms, but I think that if you take the Metroid Dread approach, you can easily sell more copies than you would have sold if you dilute things out on multiple different platforms and have to worry about this and that and putting everything into these games, and just focus in on what you want to do and building this franchise back up to where it needs to be. Because like I said, Metroid Dread selling 3 million units in that 1 year plus time is absolutely phenomenal. It's the best selling Metroid game of all time, and it hasn't even been well more than a year. That's better than Metroid Prime, which was a revolutionary game on the GameCube and a Game of the Year winner, and people were saying, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever. And it's not just like it's the Nintendo Switch's install base either, because Metroid has been on other Nintendo systems that have had just as big of an install base, if not bigger, like the Nintendo DS, for example. So I do feel that this is the right time, it's the right opportunity for Capcom to really look into what they want to do and start planning that next Mega Man game. Now, there's been talk about what's going to go on with it. Do we see a Mega Man X? Do we see something like that, an X9 or a brand new thing? And I think no. I think that you don't go with any type of X9, X10, X whatever, like where it's going to confuse people. I think that's the wrong idea. What you do is a soft reboot. Now, Metroid Dread isn't a soft reboot. There is a bunch of story before, and it does follow a line of games. But I think that with this Mega Man game, you kind of just go do a soft reboot, you go back to the basics, and then you make it look incredible. Incredible 2D gameplay, incredible 3D, obviously, like graphics, but 2D in terms of its gameplay, just like Metroid Dread. Metroid Dread is an actual 3D game, but just on a 2D fixed camera scope. So I think you do the same exact thing for Mega Man. You don't make it look, you know, the super cartoony look or anything like that. You make it look like a really in-depth, nice, gritty Mega Man game that has those colors and brightness where it needs to be applied. And I feel that would be the best thing for this franchise going forward, because like I said, it's just something that Metroid Dread, in my opinion, should inspire so many more developers to make super high quality 2D games and put them out on the Nintendo Switch. Reach back into your catalog of games, look back and see what you have and see what you can bring out, because Metroid wasn't a franchise that ever cracked 3 million. Never did, never even got super close to doing that, especially a 2D Metroid game. The closest that we've got, I think, was Super Metroid back on the Super Nintendo. Outside of that, 2D Metroid is not a 3 million selling franchise or anywhere near that. So to see that Metroid Dread was able to do that on the sales and hype and install base in terms of what the Nintendo Switch is doing, I think that Mega Man, that has just as much clout as Metroid, in my opinion. Like the franchises, yes, Metroid has sold better, but Mega Man has just as much clout. It's got so many things in terms of pop culture and history and people that love the franchise. I think now is the time to get that done. But we'll see what Capcom has to say about that and what they want to do. Right now, Capcom's super focused on Resident Evil, Monster Hunter, Resident Evil, more Resident Evil, Monster Hunter. Those are the franchises that they really kind of push. You know, Street Fighter's coming out very soon here. Then some of the smaller things like Ghosts and Goblins and all that do get some smaller, lower budget type of things. And that's worked well for Capcom, right? Like Resident Evil is selling better now than it's ever sold. Street Fighter's doing really good now at this point. Obviously, you know, Monster Hunter is huge when it comes to sales, but I think that this is the right opportunity if they can get somebody that can come in and make this happen with it, because 1.6 million out of all those systems for Mega Man 11, that's the best selling one. That just seems wrong. I mean, don't get me wrong, like Mega Man 11 is a solid game, but that just seems wrong compared to the potential that Mega Man has, the franchise, and what it's done on the Super Nintendo with the Mega Man X series and everything, and what it originally did on the NES, bringing this style of game to so many different people out there over the years. So I think that the opportunity to really build Mega Man into something bigger and better is here. But obviously, we're looking at the Nintendo Switch, right? The system is kind of on its last legs. Nintendo's probably going to be moving on to the next Nintendo Switch system. I talked about this recently with Monolith Soft and what they're doing. So what could Capcom do with that? Well, I think that the Nintendo Switch system itself probably isn't going anywhere anytime soon. There are so many people out there that still just don't care about the frame rates and the resolutions and having all of that. They'd rather just have an incredible game experience, and the Nintendo Switch can still deliver that depending on what type of game you're trying to deliver. So I feel that they can still make a new Mega Man game 2 years from now or a year and a half from now. Even if the next Nintendo Switch is out, it can be a cross-gen game between the next Nintendo Switch and the regular Switch. You don't need to invest it to where it's 4K, 5 million frames per second, all of that. We saw Metroid Dread, I think was 900p, 60 frames per second. That would work just fine for a brand new Mega Man game. That would absolutely work just fine for that. And you can go with that. And then if there's a next gen version of the game, you can make it higher resolution and frame rate or whatever the case is, right? You can do whatever Nintendo has to do with their next system. So there's many possibilities here. There's many opportunities for them to get that done with whatever Nintendo decides to do going forward. But you shouldn't just ignore that huge 110 million plus install base out there, like just because there's a new system coming out. Just like we still see a lot of cross-gen games at this point, right? Like God of War Ragnarok is launching very soon as of the time that I'm recording this video, and it's still coming out on PlayStation 4. Yes, there's been some talk like, hey, it's kind of holding things back because it has to run on PS4, but the game is still going to sell a bazillion copies. It's still going to be incredibly good. People are still going to enjoy the hell out of it on the PlayStation 4 or the PlayStation 5. So there's still room and opportunity to support the previous gen system, even if they don't have the highest specs or anything out there. So I don't think Capcom should be too worried about that, because I don't think the Switch is just going to drop dead like the Wii dropped dead or like the Wii U dropped dead as soon as the next system came out, because of the popularity of the Nintendo Switch and the versatility of it and its library, you know. And I do feel that the library is going to be backwards compatible with the next gen Switch, so you're still going to see people buying the previous games and everything. You're still going to see people buying Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom on the regular Nintendo Switch, compared to what has happened before in the past where people just stop buying games completely and just move on to the next thing. That's not happening with a lot of these new systems coming out with the Xbox Series and the PlayStation and everything. So I think that's going to be the same thing here with the Nintendo Switch. So I hope Capcom, you look at what Metroid Dread has done, you look at the sales numbers, you look at the hype and the life that Metroid Dread was able to just inject into everybody in terms of the classic games and everything and the sales, and you say, hey, we can have that same thing with Mega Man, because I think that it's absolutely possible to get something like that done. But we're gonna have to wait and see what Capcom has to say here. I know I'm excited to talk about things like this. If you guys have any other topics that you'd love for me to discuss when it comes to classic games or stuff that you want to see come back, make sure you drop a comment below, let me know about it. But what did you guys think about this discussion? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and we will see you for the next video. Peace.